since you've been away.
DJ Payne 1.
Oh, come on.
I don't think that I'm coming back. Boy, I told you I'm done with that. You think you can do me so wrong. I'm not the one, no. I'm not the
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CEO Sports Show for September 2nd, 2025. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about Bill Belichick's coaching debut for the North Carolina Tar Heels and how big of a disaster that was. We're also going to be talking about, obviously there's a game on Thursday between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to talk about both those teams and their season outlook going into this year. But without further ado, before we get into the episode, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. Make sure to go check out the other Kretschman Media shows on the platform. I would greatly appreciate that. We're doing some great work over here at Kretschman Media, and we have grown big time, especially over this past weekend. We grew by quite a bit this past weekend. So appreciate all the support and love from you guys. It is much appreciated. But without further ado, we got to get into this episode and talk about Bill Belichick and his coaching debut. Two things can be true. Bill Belichick's coaching debut for the North Carolina Tar Heels was an absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. But what also can be true is that Bill Belichick is maybe the greatest football coach of all time. As a matter of fact, he is the greatest football coach of all time. So if there is anybody who deserves the benefit of the doubt, it is the greatest football coach of all time. Maybe Bill Belichick, he lost it. He's washed up. He can't coach anymore. The game has caught up to him. Got that. Understand that. That could very well be true. But at the same time, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's Bill Belichick. But one thing did come to my mind, and got to be honest, I'm always honest. And if something is on my chest, I got to let it off. Everybody knows I am not a Sanders family apologist. I'm not that at all. I criticize the Sanders family when I need to. I praise them when I need to. I am impartial when it comes to them. I'm not on one side. I'm not on the other. But one thing that came to mind is this. It's nothing against Bill Belichick, and it's not saying anything about him. I think Deion Sanders deserves a little more respect for what he was able to do for Colorado. And the reason why I say that is because he turned that program around as soon as he got on campus. You may say, well, what did it turn into? True. It was an awful program, the worst in its conference. Now it's over at the Big 12. It's a middle of the pack. It's a middle of the pack Big 12 team. They were a Pac-10 team, and they were the worst Pac-10 team. And now they're a middle of the pack Big 12 team. Again, he changed the program. Yeah, they're not a national championship contender, but they had a chance last year in the Big 12. And that's what makes me just go back to, this is nothing against Bill Belichick or his legacy or his coaching ability in the current day. But I think Deion Sanders deserves a little more respect for what he was able to do in Colorado. And I get it. It has nothing to do with Bill Belichick, but that's just one thing that I took from this. But when it comes to Bill Belichick, I'm not worried overly about North Carolina. And the reason why I'm not overly worried is because I didn't have much expectation coming into the season. And if you're a North Carolina fan, who else would you have gotten as your coach? Who would you have wanted as your coach other than Bill Belichick? This was a no-brainer hire for the North Carolina Tar Heels. When Bill Belichick was interested, absolutely, you bring in Bill Belichick as your coach because you're not going to get anybody else who is a better coach. They brought in 20 transfers. And here's the thing with Bill Belichick. What is he? He is a program builder. He's not a guy that's going to come in day one and flip a switch and your program's going to be much more legitimate than it was previously. It's going to take some time for Bill Belichick. But at the same time, I shouldn't say it's going to take more time and then also think, hey, he might be the next head coach of the New York Giants. Now, I don't think that, me personally. I think that Giants would move in a different direction. But there are people who are saying, hey, this could be a thing. And whether or not you think that's legitimate or not, I'm just saying it's out there. But this might not have been a smart move by Bill Belichick taking this coaching job, because you're going to a middle of the ACC, upper ACC type of team, like slightly upper. Was it the best job for Bill Belichick? I don't know if I can say that. Not only that, is this going to hurt his future employment opportunities when it comes to, hey, NFL or even a better college coaching job? I kind of just wonder what was going through his head when he took this job. But I'm not 100% out on Bill Belichick as a North Carolina coach if his idea is that he wants to still coach and he still wants to be in the coaching spotlight. I'm not 100% out on the future of this program, but it's going to take a little more time than people originally expected. I did hear some things. I saw an Instagram post. I want to bring this up because this was very interesting for me. This was very interesting that it seemed like there was a little more turmoil within that program than I originally expected. There were people saying that, when it came to recruiting, there was a little bit of like, what's going on here, that they were making recruits wait 30 to 45 minutes and sometimes not even seeing a recruit. It was something that I looked at and I said, wow, I didn't know this. And now that I know this, and not only do I know this, but I saw the result of what happened yesterday, it makes me think. And that's all I'll say about that. Am I out on Bill Belichick as the UNC coach? I'm not 100% out, but I can't lie to you guys. I am a little looking at it sideways from that perspective. Now, I will say this, TCU, better team than I expected. That's a team that could potentially compete for the Big 12 this upcoming season. When you talk about their quarterback, Josh Hoover, man, I was very impressed with that young man. He looked like a guy who could potentially be an NFL draft pick. That's how good he looked in that regular season debut for the TCU for Horned Frogs, right? Their run game looked pretty good yesterday. I mean, they just flat out dominated UNC. And understand this, UNC came out in their first offensive and defensive possession. You're like, wow, look at what they did with this football team. They look like a high-powered unit on both sides of the ball. And then you started watching the game unfold, and you started to see the flaws with this football team. Too many transfers coming in. Wasn't a good enough roster. 70 transfers is absolutely wild. You were never going to have the cohesion you wanted to have game one. Now, maybe Bill Belichick goes back in the lab and he says, okay, these are the adjustments that we have to make. But another thing that I can't shake this either. There was a lot of noise about Bill Belichick this offseason. And it wasn't just that he went to college football. All the stuff with the girlfriend, that's noise. All the noise that she made, all the attention that she brought on the program. I don't like talking about things like that off the field, but she put herself in the spotlight. And not only did she put herself in the spotlight, Bill Belichick allowed her to do that. And I just wonder if Bill Belichick was more distracted than I think people realized. And, to me, when it comes to Bill Belichick, that's something that didn't really hurt him when he was with New England. What was Bill Belichick's thing? Do your job. That was Bill Belichick's mantra. And it just doesn't seem like that's necessarily the case right now with North Carolina. But that's it for that topic. I want to move on to the next topic. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys play on Thursday Night Football. I want to start off with the Philadelphia Eagles and talk about what I think about their team going into the season. When I look at the Philadelphia Eagles, are they Super Bowl contenders? Yes, but I don't believe they're Super Bowl contenders to the extent that some people do, where it's like, look, just cancel the season. They're going to go back to back. It's already going to happen. I don't look at them like that. I look at them as a team who have they lost some pieces this year, right? When you talk about losing Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, those guys were the best players on the field during that Super Bowl game, right? You lose Brandon Graham. Now you replace them with Nolan Smith, who had a very promising year last year. Jalix Hunt is another guy. Are these guys ready for full-time roles? Still have Jalen Carter, who's a fantastic defensive tackle. You still have Jordan Davis, who I'm not that high on. Moro Jamo is their backup defensive tackle. There's a lot of people who have high hopes for him. We'll see what happens there. Their linebackers are very good. Their secondary is a unit where I say might be a little overrated, but we'll see what happens there. Offensively, they're pretty much the same team outside of losing their right guard, Mekhi Becton. Now they have Tyler Steen, Juergens, Dickerson. They're still on the interior. Johnson, Mailata. It's a talented roster, but it's not as talented as it was last year. And you wonder, where do they rank in terms of overall talent? I think that the Ravens are the most talented team in the NFL, me personally, because I think that the supporting cast surrounding Lamar is on the level of what the Eagles have surrounding Jalen Hurts. But I also think Lamar Jackson is a much better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. So because of that, I think that puts the Ravens over the top of the Eagles. Now, the difference between the Eagles and the Ravens is that the Eagles have executed in the postseason. The Ravens have not. Can they change that this upcoming year? It's yet to be seen. But I would say, me personally, I don't have the Eagles winning the NFC this year because I have the Rams winning the NFC. I think the Rams are going to be excellent this upcoming year, right? You have the receivers on the outside. You have Matt Stafford. The defensive line is fantastic. They have a lot of things going their way. But when you look at the Eagles, one thing that worries me about the Eagles this upcoming season is not just the talent that they lost, but they were very lucky when it came to injuries last year. I mean, they were the healthiest team in football by a mile. I think 23 of their 24 starters started in the Super Bowl. And the one player that didn't start in the Super Bowl was Nakobe Dean, right? Like, decent linebacker. It's not like they lost anybody big last year. Can they replicate that on top of the fact that they lost talent, on top of the fact that we've seen that Jalen Hurts needs a monster supporting cast if they want to win? Because once you take pieces away from Jalen Hurts, you get 2023, where he was a below average quarterback, throwing way too many interceptions, and you put too much on his plate. And that's just not Jalen Hurts' game. He's not one of these quarterbacks that can make up for 60, 70% of the offense like some of these top guys can. He's not a guy that's going to be able to overcome certain things. You could say, oh, well, they had the 30th ranked defense in the league in 2023. Okay, but like when you watch the games, when the defense started to play bad, the Eagles started to play bad. I mean, look at some of those games that they lost. Okay, they gave up a lot of points to the San Francisco 49ers. Last time I checked, the offense didn't play well that game either. They gave up a bunch of points to the Cowboys. Last time I checked, the offense didn't play well that game either. I don't think they scored a single touchdown. Right? You can go back and talk about the Jets game where that offense was horrible. The Seattle game. Like, what I'm saying is, if this supporting cast isn't firing on all cylinders, can Jalen Hurts be the difference of, okay, we're not as good with our supporting cast, but I can be the difference? It's yet to be seen. And I think that is a big question mark going into this year, because I don't think you can rely on Saquon Barkley to have the type of season that he had last year. because I think he had 450 carries when you factor in the regular season and the playoffs. I mean, and here's the thing as well. Again, I'm not wishing injury on anybody, but you have to talk about these things because it is football. Saquon Barkley is an injury-prone player. I always say this, you're injury-prone until you play one full healthy season, and then you're not injury-prone anymore. So can the, I think, drop in production that we're going to see from Saquon Barkley, I don't think it's going to be a drastic drop. I think he's still going to be effective. But can the drop in production that we're most likely going to see from Saquon Barkley, on top of the fact that the offensive line isn't as good and the defense isn't as good, can Jalen Hurts overcome that? That question remains to be seen. And that's going to be the biggest question about the Eagles going into this season. And whether or not they're going to repeat as Super Bowl champions, Jalen Hurts is going to have to do more. We're going to have to see more from him. And I just worry because I've seen when they ask a lot of Jalen Hurts. Even this season, they were 2-2 coming out of the bye. Jalen Hurts was asked to do a lot in those 4 games. And they didn't play well in those 4 games, right? Packers game, he was pretty good. But the Falcons, the Tampa Bay game, even the Saints game that they won at the beginning of the year, he didn't play well. And that's when they were putting more on his plate. So I know it's easy to say Eagles are going to repeat. They're shooing to win the Super Bowl again. I just say pump the brakes and let's look at this team and let's assess it, right? Like, let's not just look at it and say they won the Super Bowl last year, so automatically they're going to win the Super Bowl again. Like, they have a new offensive coordinator. They have a lot of new pieces on this team that they're going to have to work in. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was another guy that they lost. And when you look at Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, while I am not a big fan of his, he was obviously a very important part of that defense because whatever he's provided to that defense, it means a lot to that defense. Because with him on the field in 2022, they were a fantastic defense. Same thing with 2024. He was on the field for them. Fantastic defense. 2023, he wasn't on the field for them. They weren't that good of a defense. So I think that those are things that you have to look into and say, okay, defensively, they're probably going to take a step back. But I think ultimately they're still a Super Bowl contender. I just don't think it's to the point where it was last year, where it's like far and away, they're the best team in the league. I personally don't think it's like that. So those are my thoughts on the Philadelphia Eagles for this upcoming year. So before we get into the next topic, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to subscribe. I'll greatly appreciate it. Check out the rest of the shows on the Kretschman Media Network. It's a fantastic weekend here. I call this weekend the real first weekend of football. Like last weekend that just passed, because you had Texas, Ohio State, you had Clemson, LSU, you had Notre Dame, Miami, you had the game last night. That to me is the first weekend of football. Like that's where you know football is back. Now this week we have Dallas, Philly on Thursday. We have Kansas City, LA on Friday. And then we have the games that we have over the weekend and on Monday night. Football is back. We are freaking back, baby. But I want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys going in this season because obviously they made that big trade for Kenny Clark. But they traded away Micah Parsons. They got Kenny Clark in return and 2 first-round picks. So when I look at the outlook of the Dallas Cowboys this year, can somebody tell me, like outside of their running back room, where they're even below average? Like their offensive line, it's young, it's unproven, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be really good. I have a lot of faith in Tyler Booker to go along with the 2 guys on the interior that they already have. Tyler Guyton is a guy who looks like he has improved. From all the training camp reports, apparently he's improved. I got to see it before I can bank on it. Terrence Steele is an okay right tackle. You will get the receivers. That is an elite receiver room that they have. Not just Lamb and Pickens, but Turpin, Tolbert, Ferguson, the running backs that they have that can catch the ball. They're really good in their pass catching unit, right? Obviously, Prescott's the quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. The question that I have is, what is this offense going to look like under Brian Schottenheimer? What are they going to do to make the game easier for Prescott? I think a lot of that is going to have to do with the shifts and motions that they're going to use to get answers for Prescott pre-snap and allow him. If you could give Prescott answers pre-snap, that guy is going to rip you, right? I mean, we saw it in 2023 when they were using the shifts and motions that they used that year. Prescott was able to play at a very, very high level that year. And do I expect that same level of production that we saw in 2023 from Prescott this year? That was an excellent season for him. I think it's kind of hard to place that type of expectation on him because you can make a case that year he was the best quarterback in the regular season, right? Like the numbers don't really tell the full story because he sat out so many fourth quarters that if he would have played in more of these fourth quarters, maybe you're looking at a 40+ touchdown type of year from him. And I think the fact that the team was blowing out teams like they were in 2023, I think that part of the reason why his MVP case wasn't stronger in 2023 was because his stats actually didn't look as good as they could have been because of the fourth quarters that he was sitting out. So he had an excellent year in 2023. And I think it's hard to predict that he's going to replicate that type of year because of how special it is. But my question about Prescott is, I think he's going to have 37, 38 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, somewhere around that. We've seen him be able to do that. But okay, maybe you don't have the type of season that you had in 2023. But can you play better in the biggest moments? Now, I think Prescott's actually a better playoff quarterback than people give him credit for, right? Like, he's played 7 playoff games. I think the only games that he's played bad in are the Packers game last year in 2024 and the 49ers game in 2023 and 2022. When you look at Green Bay in 2017, thought he played well that game. When you look at the 2019 playoff games, both Seattle and LA, I thought he played well in both of those games. When you look at the Tampa Bay game in 2023, he was excellent in that game. So I don't necessarily buy the notion that he's a bad playoff quarterback. I think that I think he can play better in the playoffs. No doubt about that. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily out on the idea that, hey, yeah, maybe it's not as good as 2023, but can you play better in the biggest moments? And I think he can. We have to see it. And I love the attitude that he's coming into with this season. Hey, everybody's counting us out. If I go out there and I have another playoff stinker, oh, well, what are they going to do? Say mean things about me? They already do that regardless. He could have 2 great playoff games. If they don't get to the conference championship or further, ESPN First Take, Stephen A. Smith, or what is it? Screaming A. Smith. I said that Dak Prescott ain't a guy that's going to get it done in the big moments. That's what Stephen A. Smith's going to say. Even if he plays well in those games. What are they going to do? Say mean things about him? Oh, well, who cares? They're going to say mean things about him regardless. And I think Prescott has gotten to that point in his career where it's like, all right, okay, I'm just going to let this thing rip. And we'll see what that turns into this upcoming year. Defensively, I think they're a little better defensively than people want to give them credit for. I think that when you look at the defensive line, I think it's a good defensive line. I think it's a more balanced defensive line, to be honest with you. I thought they were a good defensive line prior to the Parsons trade. I think they're a good defensive line now. And the reason why I say that is because I think the pass rushers that they have are still very good. I still think they have a very good unit there. It's not elite. Maybe very good's a little bit of a stretch. It's a good unit with Fowler, with Williams and Ezaraku, and the interior pass rushers that they have. I think they'll be able to get after the quarterback. I think they'll do better than they have. They're not going to be the 27th ranked run defense. I think they're probably going to be anywhere from 12 to 17, and that is a massive improvement. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to be as good rushing the passer. So that is something that you have to take into account. But I think the Kenny Clark addition balances out their defensive line. When you look at their linebacker room, I think it's solid, especially once Overshone returns. That's going to be a very solid unit for the Cowboys. Their secondary with Bland, Diggs, who might be playing on Thursday. I didn't even know this. Diggs might be playing on Thursday. 75% chance, he said. That would be wild if that happened. And partially the thing that happened there with Diggs is that he didn't go with the team doctor. He did his rehab with somebody else. So that's why the timeline was a little bit skewed for Trayvon Diggs. But when I look at their secondary, Bland, Diggs, Elam, like Savon Revel is going to come back. I think they have a good cornerback room. I think their safeties are average. But when I look at this team, okay, offensively, the only spot that gives me cause to pause is the running back room. And then defensively, I think the safeties are average, but I think everything else around them is either solid to good. So I'm asking the question, why do people think that this is going to be a 7-win football team? I don't necessarily buy that. I don't think that's going to be the case. I look at them more as, I'm going to have a wide net here. I'm going to say 9 to 12 wins is where I see this team at, because, usually I like to keep it to a 2-game, buffer there, because I do want people to hold me accountable. But at the same time, I just really have no idea. Like, I can't see anything less than 9 wins. And I don't know if I see more than 12 wins. I don't know if this team's a Super Bowl contender. I don't think they're there yet. But I think with the Parsons trade, if they can execute this properly, re-sign some of the guys that they want to sign back when it comes to Bland, Tyler Smith, George Pickens. If they do that and they go out next year in free agency and they spend the money that now they're going to have because of the fact that they're not going to have to sign Parsons to a $40+ million extension per year. If they can use the first round draft picks they have and just use that all on defense, things could turn out well for them. And you have Kenny Clark, a guy who I still think has about 2 to 3 years left at playing at a high level. Last year he struggled a bit, but I think part of that is because he had an injury. I think that they're a better team than people are giving them credit for. And I think on Thursday, I'm not going to spoil my pick, but it's going to be a lot closer than people think. This is going to be an excellent game on Thursday. And, not to spoil too much from my preview, that's going to be up on the page. Make sure to check that out. Prescott in his last 5 against the Eagles, 16 touchdowns to 1 interception. He's completing over 70% of his passes. The Cowboys in those games are 4-1. So I don't think by any means that this is a game that's going to get out of hand. Maybe it does, and maybe I'm wrong, and you guys will remind me of that, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But I don't know. I don't know if I see that. That's going to be it for the CEO Sports Show for September 2nd, 2025. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, check out the other shows on the Kretschman Media Network. I would greatly appreciate that. And until next time, I will see you guys later.